Hello and welcome to another edition of The Family Business. I'm your host, Joe Sigland Jr. with my co-host, Isaac Stoops. Today, we got the man, the myth, the legend, the voice of the Sooners, Toby Rowland. Toby, thanks for coming on today.
This is cool. It's great to be on with you guys. Thanks for asking.
It's really cool because it's a little bit of role reversal you got going on today. You spent so much time interviewing my father and Coach Stoops. And
Who's your dad now? I don't.
He's Big Joe to me.
Big Joe.
I'm trying to take over the moniker, actually. I'm trying to become Big Joe. He's going to become Little Joe.
Does he know that this is happening?
He does.
Okay.
He does. I told him the other day at Charleston's. Somebody came up to me like, wow, you're really strong. I said, yeah, I'm trying to become Big Joe.
You're getting there.
He hated it.
My dad also told me to tell you hi. He called me right before this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We'll just get a gold round table from behind. So we appreciate you coming on today. You know, you're a busy man calling football, basketball, and baseball right now. We just want to know more about you. Let's take it back to the beginning. Okay. What do you remember about becoming the voice of the Sooners? Tell me about that time a little bit. And then, actually, how many years has it been now?
This is 13. Yeah, this is year 13. I was working at Channel 9 back in the 2000s for about a decade and doing a little bit with OU here and there, calling some games whenever they needed to fill in for a baseball or softball game or a few basketball games along the way. And then in 2009, I got hired as the sideline reporter for the football team. And as a kid that grew up in Mustang, who has been a Sooner fan my whole life, I mean, that was a dream come true. I thought like that was the ultimate at the time because I was working with Bob Berry and Merv Johnson, and I was on the sidelines for your dad and for Oklahoma football, traveling with OU football for 2 years. That was, if I would have done that for the rest of my life, I would have been perfectly happy. But then Bob Berry announced he was going to retire. And I was I'm a play-by-play guy at heart, and that has always been my dream job. And my wife said to me, you're going to throw your hat in the ring, right? And I said, well, I'll let him know I'm interested, but just so you know, honey, I got no shot at this job because there's a lot of people that are going to be a lot more experienced than me that are going to be interested. I mean, this is where Walter Cronkite started as voice of the Sooners, and Kurt Gowdy and John Brooks and Bob Berry and Mike Treps, but we'll let them know we're interested. And I won't go into the whole process, but as the months went along, I was just convinced I had no shot. And then, Learfield called and said, hey, would you do a phone interview? You're one of the 5 candidates we're considering. And I thought, hey, that's cool. They're not going to give me the job, but now we can tell people that we were one of the 5 candidates that got considered. That still sounds pretty
Toss
cool.
it on the resume.
Yeah, exactly. And then it went to like face-to-face interviews where they whittled it down to the top 3. And I was saying, they're just doing this because I'm the sideline guy. They're throwing me a bone to keep me happy. But now we can tell people that we were one of the 3 candidates that they considered. And eventually, I had an interview with your dad, and I had an interview with President Boren, and those went great. And I remember picking up the phone and calling my wife and saying, we might get this job. And she said, don't get your hopes up. And then we got the call. And it has been life-changing. I knew it would be, but it has been for the last 13 years even more than we could have possibly imagined. I mean, the places that we've had the opportunity to go, the games that we've got to see. I've got 3 kids who have grown up now being a part of traveling with the Sooners. It's been incredible. And if you think of the teams, football, basketball, and baseball, College World Series, Final Four, playing for national championships, it's been an incredible, almost decade and a half now.
Do you remember what kind of like the public perception was of it after it all happened? How was that for like you and your family? It's always interesting when there's a big change from someone like, Bob Berry Sr. who had been there forever, like my dad to Lincoln, or, how these things go.
I would say lukewarm at best was the reaction. I remember I just got absolutely plastered on sports radio the day that the news came out.
The old social media.
Yeah.
The old social media.
Exactly.
And that was honestly probably one of the best things that could have happened early on, because the criticism of it came from from an OSU guy. And I think the OU fan base kind of said, hey, I hope this guy works out just to prove him wrong. But it was lukewarm, and I'd expect that. Honestly, I'm a big Cincinnati Reds fan, and I've listened to Marty Brennaman my whole life. He was the play-by-play voice of the Reds for 40 years, and I loved Marty. I probably listened to Marty call, I don't know, 10,000 games, maybe 5,000 games in my life, and he retired 2 years ago. And when he did, they hired a new guy, Tommy Thrall, who is really good. But I remember the first time I heard Tommy Thrall call a game, I didn't like it. He's fine, but it's not Marty. I've always heard Marty. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the reaction of a lot of Sooner fans, and understandably so, when I took over for Bob. And it took a while for that to wear down.
Yeah. Now, this next generation, though, will attach your name and your voice to every time they see it. Every time you see a Sooner highlight of the past 13 years, your voice, your call is on it. So now they kind of attach that. So going forward, it's safe to say that.
That's heady stuff. I don't want to think about that.
No, we're getting hot and heavy right here. So, yeah. And part of that is due to all your catchphrases. So two of your most synonymous are unhitch the wagon, put the ponies in the barn, or oh mama here. Tell me about developing those. Was it a spur of the moment thing, or you were kind of workshopping these a little bit and you're like, I'll throw them out and they stuck? Or just kind of talk about developing those phrases that become part of you in the broadcast.
So, I don't really say "oh mama" a lot.
Moments.
I probably say it 3 or 4 times a season, but it happens to be the 3 or 4 biggest plays that get replayed a lot. So I think people think I say that all the time. That is just something that, I'm the son of a preacher. We're an Oklahoma family. We say things like that, And so on an exciting play, my first year, that just came flying out, and it just kind of has stuck. Unhitch the Wagon was a little more thought out because of Marty. Marty, every time the Reds won a game, he said, and this one belongs to the Reds. As soon as the final out happened, he would declare, and this one belongs to the Reds. And I remember growing up thinking, like, I would stay around when it was 8-1 in the 9th just to hear Marty say, and this one belongs to the Reds. And it just it became a cool deal among Cincinnati fans. And when I got the job, I thought, I wish I could think of something like that like Marty does. But, I mean, if you force those kind of things, if you try to write them out ahead of time and perform them, they undoubtedly come out corny. And I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this saying, well, what you do now is corny, and that's fine. I agree. But I did think in advance it'd be great if you could come up with kind of a game clinching. The game's over and the Sooners have won today. First season, as play-by-play, OU's playing, I think it was Ball State, and they're blowing them out. And it's third quarter, and they score a touchdown to make it like 63-7 because your dad is always running up the score on people. And the Ponies come out. We're at Owen Field, and here come the Ponies because they run after a touchdown, and it's 63-7. So this is what, their 9th lap of the day. And I said, we could probably unhitch the wagon and put the Ponies in the barn. Like, this is done. And that got picked up and replayed and got some positive reaction. And so I thought maybe that's something. And then so the next time there was a moment that was a game-clinching play, I said it again, and it worked. And so it's kind of stuck through the years.
It's funny how, like, organically it happened. Like you said, you didn't really rehearse it, beforehand.
Yeah. I think the big man arranged that upstairs. Yeah. So it's been fun.
Worked out well for you. Do you have a favorite unhitch the wagon moment, or maybe there's too many of those? Oh, mama, maybe, since they only happened a few times.
I
can recall a few.
The ends of the OU Texas games lately have been a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I feel like the last several OU wins, the Kennedy Brooks run, the Trey Brown interception in the 4th overtime, Nick Anderson this year, have been, moments like that where virtually the game ended. That's the best. When the game ends on a big play, when there's a walk-off home run or the Javian McCollum buzzer beater where, bam, big moment, and then you declare victory. those are always the most fun for me.
Yeah.
It's cool seeing those. The J. McCollum's the freshest one, but the OU Texas games are definitely up there. We were trying to predict them, what you're going to say before the show, and those were the exact same ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A couple of those, yeah.
Really?
I think it's the most fun for everybody, and so it's the most fun for you as well.
Well, I was losing my voice at the JV McCollum game this year. I was getting over a sinus infection, and thankfully, most of the time they cut the call off before I started squeaking too bad. But I went Peter Brady on the end of that call pretty bad, so that's not my favorite one. But those moments like that are pretty cool.
You put Kevin Henry on ISO a little bit on that game?
Yeah, please.
No, so just like that moment, everybody sees that clip and they'll hear your call, and it's such a pleasure for Sooner fans because I think at times some take you for granted, not in a bad way, but because you're so good. You listen to any other play-by-play, you're like, wow, we're really lucky to have
it's
you.
nice of you. I appreciate that.
I know that personally. Just listening to other calls, I'm like, wow, we really have it good here at the
That's very
University
nice
Oklahoma.
of you.
So,
Thank you.
just tossing that out there. But kind of building on that a little bit, has there been a most disappointing loss you've called?
Where you didn't get to say it?
Where you were close?
Most disappointing loss. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is Omaha. I'm sure I'll think of some more, but I'm a huge baseball fan, huge college baseball fan. And, you know, we went 11 years there before we got to go to Omaha. And when they finally went, it was such a glorious run. They just kept beating everybody. And there was this feeling like this is invincible. They're invincible. Like they're just going to win it all. And I remember when they got to Ole Miss. And even then, I think if Spike was safe, they still would have won it, you know. But that was disappointing.
It's a big what if. That's a huge what if.
There's been a bunch of gut punches through the years where, not a bunch. I mean, honestly, we've been really blessed. But, you know, Texas threw in a couple of buzzer beaters against us in basketball that are just – there was a 19-point lead a few years back. You had a 19-point lead in Austin. And with like 7 minutes to go, and it got away, and they threw in a bucket at the buzzer to beat us. And
was that the Moth Imbai year where he threw the
horns down?
Yeah.
Lon Kruger I thought Lon was going to make him walk home that day.
Send him on the Greyhound.
You may think of some, but there's been a few of those through the years where it felt like this is about to be glorious, and then victory was snatched, and it just leaves you feeling sick.
Omaha is definitely up there for myself. The Rose Bowl. Since I was on that team, the Rose Bowl is probably the hardest loss.
Yeah, I would agree.
The Rose Bowl is definitely up there for me.
Let's don't take a long.
Yeah, we're not going to take a victory lap. But
I'm with you on that.
There's so many good moments, but we just had to ask because it's part of the job.
You know, honestly, when you're calling the game, it's a job, right? And as much as you want OU to win, the thing that I'm thinking about, and I think my crew is thinking about, is we want to execute this job properly. Win or lose, you want to call a good game. And there have been many times that OU has won, and I've come home upset. And my wife would say, what was wrong? I thought they won. And I was like, yeah, but we didn't have a very good broadcast, or I fumbled the biggest play or whatever. And there's been times where OU has lost, and I've come home not necessarily happy, but, you know, in a better mood than expected. And she'd say, why is that? Like, we had a great broadcast tonight. Like, we lost, but we had a great broadcast tonight. Technically, everything went well. And so, first and foremost, I think that's a little bit hard for maybe sometimes people to realize that this is our job, and we want the broadcast to be better than their broadcast. Mm-hmm. Whoever we're playing that night, like, we can't control who wins, but we want to beat them, whoever is broadcasting for the opposing team. And so we get kind of competitive about it, and it's the same, you know, your dad has given us the same objective that he gave your dad and that he gives our coaches, which is we don't expect you just to be good. We expect you to have the best football team in America. We expect you to have the best softball team in America. And he expects us to have the best broadcast in America. Mm-hmm. And so that's our goal. And there are nights when we don't win on the field or on the court, but we had a really good broadcast and we feel good about it. And then the opposite is true way more often. So, and my mood isn't always, when you lose on the road, it's tougher too because then you got to travel home with a disappointed team and coaching staff and fans and everything. And so those are always a little more painful.
How much communication from the beginning when you got the job with Big Joe or Joe Castiglione Sr., how much communication did you have with him laying out like this is what he and the rest of the athletic department wanted the broadcast to look like? And then how much do you have it like to this day, kind of communication with him and the rest of the team?
You probably know this. We talk a lot. Me and your dad talk a lot. I wouldn't say daily, but several times a week. And it's rarely about the broadcast. Like he has done an amazing, I think he does for us what he does for his coaches and everybody he hires, which is he hired us to do a job and then believes in us. And not that there's guidance there when we need it or suggestions there when he hears or sees something that he likes from somebody else around the country or doesn't like, then we'll have conversations about it. But he's not and never has been someone who after a game or after he hears a broadcast calls and says, hey, I think you should have done this or I wish you'd done that. Like he doesn't give notes to a broadcast. He just kind of trusts you to go do your job. I assume that if it wasn't going well, he'd find somebody else to do it. That's my indication that he's happy is he hasn't fired me yet. But we talk quite a bit. We've struck up a friendship early on. We both like to eat a lot. So when we're on the road, we tend to find diners or restaurants, and he's the king of that, Italian food, whatever it may be, and like to discuss a variety of things. But he's not in my business, so to speak, as far as do this, don't do that, all that kind of stuff. He's welcome to. Obviously, he's the boss. So any suggestion he has, we welcome it, but that's just not his leadership style.
It's not his cup of tea.
Yeah.
I don't
know if people know this. Like, Joe has probably hired more Hall of Fame and future Hall of Fame broadcasters than anybody in America. And I don't have the list in front of me, but it is a very impressive list from Kevin Harlan to Joe Buck on down the line. It is an amazing list of people in his Missouri days and now into his Oklahoma days that he is responsible for getting their broadcasting career started. It's a real gift. I mean, your dad's got a real gift, and I appreciate that he appreciates the art of broadcasting because I would assume there's a lot of I know there are because I talk to other play-by-play guys. There's a lot of athletic directors who don't care. Like, that's just not what they care about. And Joe very much cares about the quality of his radio and television broadcasts and coaches shows. And I think that's cool. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, like I wouldn't really know you obviously know a good broadcast from a bad broadcast, but like when it comes to the little things, you guys probably pinpoint, a bunch of small things. And I think that like him having an appreciation for that makes all the difference. Like, like you said, you were hired to do a job and it takes a village. Everybody just doing their job, not doing anybody else's but yours. And that kind of going back to what he was saying, kind of how the job has changed since you've been here. Has it been like, how has it changed? Or like seeing new faces every year, how do you adjust to that? And especially with the portal now, rosters are changing more than ever.
Yeah, I got to learn a lot more names than I used to. I don't necessarily like the roster changeover more than any other fans do as far as just the overall health of college sports. It has made it interesting, though. You don't get as much relationship building with the athletes as, even 10 years ago. And what I mean by that is when a kid would come in, like a Buddy Hield. Buddy's a great example. Kid would come in as a freshman, and by the time he leaves as a senior, we know each other pretty well because you've traveled a lot of places and done a lot of interviews and eaten a lot of meals and everything and gotten to know the kids. And I think that makes for a better broadcast in some sense because you know about their family, you can tell stories about them growing up. You get to know them better. And that's pretty rare now, because there's not a lot of guys, football, baseball, basketball, that are coming in as freshmen and leaving as redshirt seniors. It just doesn't happen a lot now. So I would say that part of it has changed. Broadcast-wise, this has all blossomed in the last 15 years. Everybody's doing podcasts now. We're doing podcasts in addition to just broadcasting a game. There are supplemental ways, whether it's Twitter or Instagram or various forms of social media that we're trying to get the message out and the word out and the score out and promotion. Also, all of that is blossomed. And again, to your dad's credit, I think he saw this coming maybe before everyone else did. I think maybe it's one of the advantages I had when he hired me is that I had a television background, and he saw that things were moving in the direction of we don't just need a radio play-by-play guy. We need somebody that can host some shows and do a lot of other things social media-wise. So, yeah, I'm very interested to see what the next 10 years have for us technology-wise, because the last 10 years has been quite an explosion.
One arm of that, just even in your, just in addition to your broadcast, is I'll plug them. Is it the Pizza Hut behind the booth? Seeing the camera in the booth for the football games and seeing those moments, not just seeing the moments on the field, but seeing you guys call those moments has kind of been another added wrinkle that's been really cool.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it with a passion. I get the appeal of it because I love watching other people, like other broadcasters. Mitch Holtis at Kansas City has in the booth, and now it seems like anytime there's a big play, you see, whether it's a college or an NFL team or whatever, there's a camera there. I feel like we were one of the first to kind of do something like that. Jacob Potter at Sooner Vision, kind of had that idea several years ago, and now it's become a thing. But there's no way to look good making a big call. I mean, I just, my belly's flopping and my jaws are going and I'm looking, it's just, I look like a complete idiot because you forget that thing's there. They hook it up 2-3 hours before the game starts and it's just a little thing in the corner and we forget it's even there. And then, an hour after the game's over, the video's out and I'm like, dadgummit. I probably got food stains on my shirt and
a good sweat going.
Oh, I'm sweating.
Depending on how hot it is.
It's just, yeah. So, but I get why people enjoy them. I'm just not sure that a radio booth is meant to be a visual medium, because there's a lot of guys that look like me who have been eating pizza and drinking Diet Cokes and it's just what I get it. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun.
My kind of man.
I didn't even know my dad joined you for a segment during one of the quarters. They told me that like before you came. I had no idea.
You never saw your dad?
Well, just because normally I'm at the games, so I don't know. I didn't know that.
Isaac's right down the hall from us. He didn't even know that.
Well, sometimes I sit normally down in the south end zone, so when I come up there to see my dad, I normally I peek in there and I see you in there, but I didn't know that he joined you sometimes.
Yeah, that's cool. He's just popped in from time to time the last few years, but this year we actually reached out and said, hey, you want to do a segment or, come in every game, and he promotes his product while he comes in there. Mm-hmm. So it's a good trade-off. But I mean, come on, like we get Bob Stoops on our broadcast every week, which if I'm doing what you said you do, which is, I flip around listening to Sirius XM broadcasts of other games when I'm going or coming from Owen Field. And if I'm flipping around and I hear a broadcast with Bob Stoops as one of the color analysts, like that's pretty sweet. So it's been a pleasure to have him. And things tend to happen when he's on the broadcast. Like we could be, we could have had 4 3-and-outs. And then when your dad comes on, we go on an 80-yard touchdown drive. Like he's a magic potion. So
it's like he's coaching again or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And he can't help it too because like he'll see a play develop before it develops. Mm-hmm. Like he's got that coach's eye.
Yeah.
And so I'll be in the middle of a call and then Bob will just start talking over me. He's open, which is awesome because he's Bob Stoops, So we've really enjoyed it. Tell him we want him to do it again next year because we love it a lot.
Yeah, push him to do it. In addition to that, it kind of seems that just over the last few years that there's been a type of like continuity within your team, continuing on with Teddy, Plank, Gabe. Just talk about adding those people to your team and just kind of meshing through the years and then, developing the product that it is.
Well, it's a great point. I've been very fortunate. The first hire that was made after I got the job was Chris Plank. And that I give credit to Joe and Kenny Mossman for that because Chris and I did not know each other well. And I had a couple of other people in mind as potential sideline reporters. I was coming up to the booth, so we needed to hire a new sideline reporter. And Kenny and your dad suggested, why don't we give Chris a try? He's over in Tulsa. We think you'd like him. And I was not like reluctant, but he wasn't like my first choice. And then we had him do the spring game of 2011. And like first quarter, I was like, this guy's unbelievable. And over the past 13 years, we've become best friends. I mean, literally, we've become best friends. I think the world of Chris Plank. He is an incredible play-by-play guy. He is an incredible sideline reporter. He's incredible at everything. He does podcasts. He can engineer. He can host TV shows. He literally is great at everything in the world of broadcasting. And to have him as a part of our team is such a win because he's so good at what he does. And everybody loves him. You know, the coaches all love him. Everybody wants to talk to him on the sidelines. He knows how to interview a winning coach. He knows how to make it softer when you lose. He's just great. And we've had that 13 years now to work together. I hope I never do this job without Chris Plank at my side. Teddy came along very early on, but it was the year one was Roy Williams. We started having a sideline analyst, which was a new thing. Roy Williams did it for the first year, and then the second year we had Teddy and Dusty do it together. And then eventually Dusty got too big time for us, and it was just Teddy. And when Teddy was good, but when Dusty left, Teddy became great. Like Teddy blossomed at that point, and he was the natural guy to bring up to the booth when Merv Johnson retired. I think he's the best color analyst in America, and I'm not just saying that because I should say that. Listen to every other broadcast in America, and nobody gives you as much knowledge concisely and easy to understand as Teddy Lehman does. And by the way, he's won a Butkus Award. Like, he knows what he's talking about, right? Yeah. So, again, I hope I get to work with Teddy for the rest of my career. We get along fantastically, and I think he's great. Gabe came on in the last, I think it's been 5 or 6 years now. So when Teddy came to the booth, I guess we brought Gabe into the sideline analyst role. And he adds even another dimension because not only does Gabe know the game from the offensive perspective, but he's hilarious. He's funny. Yeah. And he adds a sense of humor to our broadcast that we might not have otherwise. And I think the four of us on air have a good chemistry. We have a larger team than any other college broadcast in America. And another thing that we do that most don't, almost all don't, is we leave the sideline guys' mics hot. So Chris and Gabe are always hot, which means they don't have to tell our engineer in his ear, hey, I've got something. That's the way it usually works with a sideline reporter. I got something, and then you have the play-by-play guy throw it down. Let's go down to Erin Andrews. She's got something on the sidelines. Our guys are always potted up. They're always hot. All they got to do is flip the mic on and say something whenever they want to say something, and it's on the air immediately. And we can do that because, one, they're good. They've got a sense of when they should speak. We have been doing it together so long that they understand my rhythm and Teddy's rhythm and where the blanks are going to be and when to jump in. And I think it makes for a lot more fun and familial feel to a broadcast because we do it that way. But you got to work together for a while before you have that kind of chemistry. Otherwise, you're stepping all over each other. So it's been great. My statistician, Dennis Kelly's been with us the whole way. Drake Dykin took over for Michael Dean when he retired. Drake is unbelievable as an engineer. Tom Shores has been with us the entire time, our sideline engineer. Unfortunately, Greg Blackwood was my spotter when I first got hired, and he passed away, I guess it was 3 years ago now, from pancreatic cancer, which was just devastating for our crew. But Andrew Shepard has taken his place and done a great job. So we really have we got a strong team.
It's been really cool to see that. I think everybody can notice just the last 3-4 years, just seeing that gel come together. And it's like, wow, this is an even more complete product than it was before.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. That's the goal.
It goes right along with our team kind of gelling too with, coaching changes and then all the new faces. It's been refreshing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed it. Brent's return was exciting because, we knew Brent from before and had a good relationship with him. Mm-hmm. But, just the man he is, the vision that he has, and to get to kind of to watch it and also kind of be a bit of a mouthpiece to the public about what he's trying to do is exciting for me, because I think we share a lot of the same values, and I'm excited about the future with Brent.
I got to ask, you've been putting out your SEC fact of the day. How much research goes into that, and where do you find these? Because they're pretty good, and they're not just like, hey, little one sentence thing. You're putting out a lot of content. So
I found, whenever that started, I guess it would have been maybe December-ish, November, December. I stumbled upon the documentary series that ESPN has on the SEC on football. There's a wonderful, I think it's 8 or 10 part documentary that has been put out on the SEC from the origin to now, and it goes like decade by decade. And I was watching that. I was craving like I'm excited about going to the league, but I don't want to be the new guy that doesn't know anything. You know what I mean? Like the new guy who doesn't appreciate the history, because sometimes I feel I'm a little bit irritated when people come to OU or come to Norman and don't appreciate what we've got here, the Heisman trophies and the national championships. And you need to understand what OU is a little better, Mm-hmm. And I think there is some of that with the SEC right now. Like, they don't understand what they're about to get in the University of Oklahoma. And I don't want to be that guy for that conference. So I kind of had this craving to watch these documentaries. And as I was going through it, I was like, I didn't know this stuff. So I started kind of I was like, I wonder if there's enough to do for the next 275 days or whatever it was. And it's been a good challenge for me, because I've had to continue to try to dig. And there's a basketball documentary series that they did as well, and I've watched that. And I'll get recommendations from people who follow on Twitter, say, hey, you should look into this or look into that. Or I'll be calling a game. I was calling a baseball game, and something about turf versus natural grass. And I was like, you know what? I should do a SEC fact on who plays on turf versus natural grass. So they're not real complicated, and they're not going to make you smart. But for me, it's been interesting to just kind of, I want to know, when we go into this league, I want to have a good comprehension of everything that we're getting into. I know it's been really good at football. I know who Nick Saban is. I know who Adolph Rupp was and the headliners. But I want to know a little more about the statues and the history. One of the interesting ones for me was the checkerboard end zone at Tennessee wasn't just a whim. Like, there's a building behind the end zone that it's like their library or whatever. And at the top, it's got a checkerboard design on it. Like, the stones are put to where it looks kind of like a checkerboard. And General Nealon, the football coach back in the day, would say, when he was trying to get his offense spurred, run toward the checkerboard, because that's what's on the building. And so it became one of his sayings was, hey, run toward the checkerboard. And the team would say, hey, run toward the checkerboard. And so they decided, when they improved the stadium, to put checkerboard end zones in. And now it's a whole thing, So things like that I find interesting, and maybe there's some people out there that do too.
I do too. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. It's become just so part of Tennessee football. I didn't know there was an actual backstory. I thought it was, hey, we thought this was really cool. We're going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
But I look forward to learning a lot more about it. So I'm following along with your series, your tweets.
That. Thank you.
I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
So is just one couple quick question. I want a football, basketball, and baseball answer for this, if possible. Just something that you are looking forward to the SEC. Is it a place, or is it going to, for baseball, go play in Hoover for the tournament, or participate this or that? Just kind of one, quick fire thing for each sport you call.
Well, it's definitely the new places, right? I'm excited about new fan bases experiencing Norman and us welcoming them, but selfishly, I'm excited to see new stadiums and new arenas and to travel to new cities. And so, if I just had to pick out, there's a lot of them, but I can't wait to experience what Baton Rouge is like, hopefully at night in football. Like, that's probably the game I'm most looking forward to next year. For basketball, it would have to be Rupp Arena. I want to see what that's about. I don't think it's going to be Allen Fieldhouse. I think it's more NBA feel, but there's so much history at Kentucky that that's the place I'm most looking forward to. I am giddy over baseball in the SEC. There are some places in the Big 12 that appreciate college baseball, and we get big crowd like Texas Tech and TCU, but the SEC is psycho about baseball.
It's a whole other animal.
I think they like it more than basketball. I mean, I think if you took a poll of SEC fans, they'd rank football 1, baseball 2 as far as the sports they're the most passionate about. And, the crowds at Mississippi and Mississippi State and LSU, we've seen Arkansas in a midweek game, but not, in a conference weekend. Vanderbilt, Tennessee. I mean, all of them are incredible environments. So, I mean, I don't want to say baseball's the thing I'm most looking forward to about going to the SEC, but it's way up there.
It may be the most different.
Definitely the most different. I mean, yeah, there's some football environments in the Big 12 that can't hold a candle to,
of course,
the SEC. There's a lot of difference between Kansas, and LSU football environments. But, yeah, the biggest contrast would be baseball, I would imagine.
Top to bottom, I could see that.
Yeah.
I always talk about it with Greg Tipton. It's like, I don't know if a lot of people know just what we're getting into in SEC baseball, but it's a religion almost.
It's going to be a blast, and we're going to be invaded on some SEC baseball weekends when we have home series because they travel like people travel with football. So there will be hundreds and sometimes thousands of LSU fans or Arkansas fans that will make their way to Norman for a baseball series. And we're gonna have to step up our game.
It'll just be baseball. A random weekend, and it'll just be packed in Norman.
Yeah, we're gonna have road games at home if we don't, really step up our game. And saying that, crowds this year have been fantastic at Mitchell Park, and it's getting better and better. But it's about to be a whole.
Have to keep building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and maybe build.
We got to keep building. Yes.
Yeah. Do that times 2. So in both ways. Yeah. But Toby, we appreciate you coming on, especially just how busy it is this year. About to go call a game today, so we appreciate you having on. Isaac, any last thoughts?
I hope we warmed you up for the baseball game tonight.
You got me. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for having me, and tell your dads thanks for hiring me back in the day. Appreciate it.
I think you'll say it's one of the best decisions he ever made. So
I hope so. Yeah.
Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate all the love and support, and remember to keep it in the family.